What do? We park so that our parking is the closest to the building that we want to enter, closest to the office. If you can park in front of the lift, that's even better, right? But apparently, what they do is they park farthest from the office. Why? Because if I come at 8:15, I have a lot of time to walk and get into the office. Whereas a guy who comes at 8:55, and he will not have much time, so let him take the parking space which is closest to the building. Can't even imagine this, right, in our culture. Okay. I'm sure we have a lot of these amusing anecdotes and we will look at some of them today. But tell me, from your point of view or whatever you have seen, how has, let's say, the Japanese culture, of having, let's say, hierarchy, their punctuality, their collectivism, as I call them, they are more group oriented than the Americans, right? How has it affected business? From a business perspective,
it affects. My venture was I have to evaluate 3 products and come up with finally I have to suggest one product, and after that we have to do the service. 3 months they have given the time. And they hired one building next to Ginza.
Ginza area.
Next to that,
okay.
It's a very expensive place.
Near Shinjuku.
Yeah. So next to that, I can walk down to Ginza, that street, shopping street. So they hired one small space, their office space. Brought servers, everything is there. It's like an office. And we were told to go there. And I went there, everything was nearby. They set up the accommodation, everything. And there are 3 people will come to that place from that office, from the Tokyo office. They come there and will discuss with us, give the requirements, and we evaluated the product. We call the product. We are doing for 3 months. 3 months for that also we are charging them. We are getting paid. So we are doing that. 3 people I was interacting, smokers, youth smokers. I used to smoke, so I used to interact with them, and I was learning first time. So finally, what happened? They didn't even give us a damn thing about what they are doing, and they never allowed me to visit that place, their office. Their office is the tallest building in Tokyo, and they are the commercial insurer for 5,000 McDonald's restaurant they insure. So like that, very big, largest insurer. I was like, we are not allowed to be taken to their office, but they like to come to our office. We had a good office, people office in the tallest building. So they come to our office, sit in the cozy seat and just enjoy. But they didn't take us, and they didn't even give any single detail. I was doing the technical side of the thing. So I was talking about Java and all, then they didn't even, they showed that they were not knowing anything. And I was telling that, okay, they are knowledgeable, and I was doing all this nonsense. Finally, everything was done. We recommended everything. We gave a presentation and everything was done. Next day they called everybody to come to their office. After everything is done, the contract is signed, they invited to their office. I went there and I saw the same folks, same guys sitting there. And one guy is from Fujitsu, that another company. Yeah. They do a lot of IT services. This guy used to talk to me like a child, that he don't know anything on technology. That guy was having 2,500 guys sitting in that same building. Under him? 2,500 people under him, in his company, from his company, sitting in there and coding. And every line of code goes into the bank locker. This test code goes to the bank locker. I was just going and seeing that. He asked me to sit with one after the other. What is he doing? Just watch. I was just sitting with him. I was, what do you do? Like, they have a framework to develop. They don't use the Eclipse.
Fujitsu doesn't use Eclipse?
No, they didn't. They made their own tool out of Eclipse. That's how they do. For that particular.
But Eclipse is their platform, right?
They do, but they made the customized for that particular customer. And every line of code is tested and goes to the bank locker. I knew that. And he showed me this is how we work. And we lost the project. Fujitsu was supposed to get the project, but they didn't lost it because of us. Because they didn't have enough knowledge for the project. So we won it.
No, bank locker means a physical bank locker?
Bank locker it goes. every
But it will be release system, right? That would
No, but tell me, no, that's it. You're explaining the event, that's okay. But tell me, from an impact to the business point of view,
business point of view,
can you tell me a cultural aspect?
there is no openness. I mean, they knew, they don't show you like I'm this in the first phase. I mean, I'm meeting people, but they are very clever and they know everything, but they don't show up that like I'm an architect, I'm a salesperson, like that. They will introduce some way, but you don't know their depth of that, and they don't show until they take to their work.
Actually, I don't know if you have noticed, none of the Japanese introduce themselves as I'm a programmer, I'm an architect. No, they never do that. At best, he will say, I work for Fujitsu.
Correct, you are right.
Right? So, it doesn't matter whether you are meeting the CEO or the programmer. Both of them, when they introduce themselves to you, both of them will say, I work for Fujitsu. Neither of them will say, I'm a programmer, I'm a CEO. So, that way, that collectivism is very high. But when they deal with each other, the hierarchy is very high. But when they face the external world, for them, that collectivism, that they all come from the same company, that they all work for Fujitsu, that is more important when they face the outside world. Inside their own company, the hierarchies are very high. As you say, no, when you sit for dinner, you can't sit next to the CEO, all those things are extremely high. So they always, when we go, we say, like you say, no, we'll say I'm a project manager, a programmer, I'm a designer, architect. We talk about what we are, okay? Whereas they don't talk about what they are. For them, they work for Fujitsu. That is their identity. Our identity is that, I'm a programmer or I'm a project manager. That is my identity, right? So how that affects, see that business, for example, if he knew on day one that this guy is a big man with 2,500 people under him, the way he would have interacted with that guy would probably have been completely different, right? That in turn could have affected the business or the contract, the deal, everything. That is the reason you should make sure that you understand culture. Whereas if you are interacting with a guy coming from the US at the same level, then you know. So next time you go to Japan and you are interacting with somebody, it's always at the back of your mind. Maybe I'm dealing with the CEO, maybe I'm dealing with a project manager, maybe I'm dealing with the chief technology officer. You never know. So that's how it can actually affect your own business deals. We look at some more examples. But good. I think China, we look at this today's newspaper. We look at this later. Ethiopia we keep out for the moment because the chances that any of us will need to understand Ethiopia in terms of business is very little.
Another thing is Japan is language.
Language is a big thing, no doubt.
Which they love their language.
No, they speak only Japanese, but you need to interpret for everything.
They will always speak Japanese.
They give, if you are visiting some place, like a cab or something, they will give Japanese map and English map. So to carry, even in China also the same. They don't understand English.
Yeah, I mean, many of them do speak English. Okay, they do understand English. But okarimashita, right? Alright. Okay. So we will look at some of the cultural and if time permits, we look at some of the politico-economic issues in international business. Because this is one of the things that will affect international business. Because in your domestic business, you are most likely to deal with a single culture. Also, let us not get confused with nation and culture. Okay? It's not necessary that a nation has a culture. There are countries like India itself where there are many cultures. Okay? And there are cultures which span across countries. Okay? While we generally associate the Japanese as a nation and a culture, the Japanese Americans, who are actually Americans, but Japanese in terms of their origin may still behave like the Japanese. Okay? So, culture, while it has predominantly national boundaries, it is not that the nation defines the culture. Okay? It is predominantly contextual. The culture especially, and interpretation of culture is very contextual. In fact, even the UK one, that, who spoke about UK? You spoke about UK. Okay, where you said they are, somehow they feel they are superior, they want to be the boss. I am the kind of boss, I am the boss. Maybe our interpretation sometimes of their beliefs and their attitudes is based on our own assumptions or our own conception, because especially because they have ruled us. Maybe when we speak to them, we are already biased, right? So there is something called ethnocentrism in cultural issues, which means thinking that somehow my culture is superior to somebody else's culture. Okay?
Even Indians, our hospitality is very good to receive anyone, foreigner, irrespective of US, UK brands. But other countries, I don't think they have that much of.
The Japanese have actually. Most of the Eastern, I'm sure, I don't know what your experience was in Japan.
They are very good.
But if you say for example that I don't know where this Asakusa temple, I'm sure you have been. I don't know where this temple is. I'm planning to go there on Sunday at 9 o'clock. Don't be surprised if that fellow lands up in your place at 8:30 and actually takes you there.
5 minutes before any meeting, before 5 minutes they are all present, but we go.
That is
Time punctuality.
Time as a function. So that time is a very, very common cultural issue across countries. It's more about the norm and how much value you give to time. Like in Switzerland, they say if you are 5 minutes early for a meeting, you are 10 minutes late. That means you are expected to be there 15 minutes earlier, right? So whereas in Arab countries it's different. In Italy, being a European country, again the value of time is very different. There are jokes which say that a guy trying to land his plane asking for permission and for the Italian some airport. So that controller said, sorry, we are having a nap, come back after 15 minutes. So that kind of thing, right? So what we will do today is understand some of the main dimensions of culture, how it affects business, and then go on. Okay?
Make the options say security.
No, not this. You have to put PPT, please. Okay, so we will use this as the framework for the rest of our course. So what this shows is you always want to have your objectives. We discussed about this. You want to go international because you want to either expand sales, or you want to reduce your cost, which means you want to acquire resources, or you want to minimize your risk because there are so many risks by staying in one country that you want to minimize your risk, and therefore you want to expand. Now, if these are your objectives, right, what are the factors that you have to consider before trying to achieve these objectives? First, you should understand what your operating environment is. We discussed about this last time. In fact, we ended up almost drawing this picture last time, right? So we said international business is affected by political policies, legal practices, cultural, economic and geographical influences. Right? We gave very few, one or two examples of all this. We will study some of these in more detail. Then we have to worry about the competitive factors. Because at the end of the day, unlike your domestic competitive strategy, if you are going international, you have to worry about global competitors and local competitors in those places. So what is your competitive product strategy? And what kind of resources will you have? What kind of structure will you have? Who are the competitors in each market? All these things you will have to worry about. So you need to be aware of the operating environment in terms of physical and social factors as well as competitive factors. Okay? But in terms of what strategy you want to follow, how do you decide what strategies you want to follow? The strategy consists of three parts. One is the modes. So what is your strategy for entering a country? Do you want to enter just by importing and exporting? Under what conditions will you do import and export? What are the advantages and disadvantages? Why would you want to do it through either either licensing or franchising, turnkey, management contracts? There are several ways of doing it.
Conditions of import export means that quality acceptance.
No. Conditions meaning importing exporting is one way of becoming international. You don't have to become international by actually setting up an office in another country, right? You just want an export market. Because what are we trying to do? We are trying to expand sales, minimize resources or risk minimization. Resource acquisition or risk minimization. You can achieve all these three by using any of these modes. Now, as the commitment to your market increases as you go down, right? Because starting from importing and exporting, your commitment to the other market is minimum. Whereas as you go down to direct investment and portfolio investments, your commitment is so much more, both in terms of financial and other resources. Then you have to decide what is it you want to internationalize, because you have the whole chain. I was just seeing your marketing management book, right? I think just right next to Porter's model, it talks about the value chain of the company. So which part of the value chain do you want to go international with? Do you want to do everything international? Some of the things you want for this reason, some of the things for this reason, some of the things for the other reason. And if you want to do it, how will you do it? Right? So which function you want to internationalize is a strategic decision that you have to take. How are you going to enter that market is a strategic decision you want to take. The third strategic thing is, how do you choose a country? Right? Given all these competitive factors and all the social factors, how do you choose a country? Okay? And once you have chosen the country, once you have chosen the function that you want to internationalize, once you have chosen the mode in which you want to go international, you have studied the competitive factors and the other factors, then how do you structure your organization? How do you structure the control, which is the most important? Okay? How do you organize that international business and how do you organize the control functions? So this is what is covered overall in international business. So if we can say, by looking at today's newspaper on the item on China, or tomorrow if you see a news item on the joint venture of Vodafone in India, or any international business news, if you see, if you can put it in this context, if you can say, by reading this, I can say that this company, this is what it's trying to do in these alternatives, this is the function it's trying to internationalize, this is the mode in which it is trying to operate in India or whichever country, these are the factors it should worry about, these are the social factors that will impact its business. If you can come to that level, I can confidently tell you that you have understood international business. Okay? So anything that you read in terms of international business news, please read it. When you read it, look at all these things. Maybe you will not get information in a single article on all these. But once you start asking yourself questions around this, whether Nokia wants to sell off a part of its business to Microsoft, or whether Apple brings in a new model in the market, finally we can fit it into this framework, more or less. So from that point of view, I think this is a very good framework on which we will. Okay? So these are the things that we try to understand. Cultural environments, major causes of cultural differences and change. But this picture that I showed you, this we will use as a theme throughout the course. Okay? So what we are going to study today is more one of these things, cultural environments. So we look at how culture influences behavior and all. So first, why do we want to study culture? You want to go international, right? Countries differ in many ways, right? And therefore we said international business is more complicated than domestic business. And different countries have different cultures and different economic systems, and different countries are also in different stages of economic development. That is another important factor, apart from culture. Okay? Each of which has an impact on business practices, benefits, costs and risks. Therefore, we want to study, and therefore it has an effect on strategy and development.
Now, product they say that we want this for US markets, the other one is for emerging.
Yeah.
So, even though in globalization, why a product with the two dimensions like
Okay.
is that the economic system?
Absolutely, yeah. One is economics. That's the fundamental one. Okay. So if you introduce what is that new one? Micromax. If you look at Micromax, where is it likely to succeed?
All this emerging market.
You don't want to sell it in Finland. Right? So one is pure economy. Where does the market exist for the product that you are planning? Okay. And second, of course, are there any? Then the other one, the competitive environment in each of those markets. Okay. If there is a market, and if the competitive environment is such that it makes sense for you to get into that market, okay, do it. But even though the product is meant for the market segment with low disposable income, and even though that segment may exist in a big way in, say, Malaysia or Indonesia or some other country, the competitive environment may not allow you to do it. One. Second, there could be a legal environment which says that if you are a foreigner, if you want to invest here, you should have a local partner. 30% of your product has to have localization. Okay, and if that is going to become uncompetitive for you, then doesn't matter how big the market segment is, you may not want to get it. Right? Or if you are using components or some IPR in your product which is highly taxed in that country for whatever reason, okay, and you end up paying tax, again your cost advantage. So there are many reasons why you may want to introduce something or not want to introduce something. Okay. But usually economic, this thing is the most important, economic reasons.
Margin also matters. Some product, if I'm introducing to a company in a new country or region.
Say that again?
Margins, I mean, if I don't
Margin.
make margin, why will I go for
Absolutely. But, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's a good, something you have to think about. Sometimes you still want to get in, even though you don't have margins.
Yeah, that
Provided, see, that depends on your overall business strategy. See, understand that international business is one part of your overall business strategy.
Kellogg's,
Kellogg's.
how much they spend, no? To change the food habits in the country itself.
That's
Usually
okay.
they are under loss.
Yeah.
Same with McDonald's also, they actually the same burger will be 3 times bigger than in US or UK. Here they are selling because they have to make margin. So
No,
here
that
the
is
smallest
a
quantity-
different thing. Where you are varying a product, you are coming up with a different version of the product in order to keep your margins, in order to capture that market segment which has a certain disposable income, and there is a certain right pricing for a product which that market will accept, and you still have to make margins based on that, and therefore you are doing it. That is one argument.
One step.
That is different. What I thought you mentioned was, if there is a product on which you are not going to make margins, will you still sell it without varying it, or even after varying it, if there are no margins, will you still sell it?
There could be a strategy, maybe for the
Exactly. So
expansion.
that is what I am saying. That is part of your business strategy. As part of the business strategy, if you have decided that I will go international, I know that the Malaysian market in the next 10 years will expand like anything. I don't care if I lose money today. For next 2 years, if I lose money on every product, every unit I sell, it's fine. But Malaysia is an important market for me. I don't mind losing money. I still want to be there as part of my business strategy, which is one piece of my overall business strategy. Of course, I have to make up that money somewhere else. Okay? And also it depends on the product life cycle stage. Right? There could be some other market where it's in the growth phase and you are making a lot of money already. And that is subsidizing your loss in your planned Malaysian market. Right? So that is part of overall business strategy. What we are talking here is if you have an overall business strategy and as part of one of the elements of that strategy is to go international, then what do you do? That is the scope for the international business. I hope you got in that context, right? Okay. So this gives a very high level definition. I mean, we all talk about culture. We know what culture means, but we have probably not tried to kind of understand from a definition point of view what it means. It's nothing but a set of values. Again, what is a set of values? Right? Set of values meaning what it is the collective attitude of a group of people, of a society, is what we call as set of values. What is right, what is wrong? Your sense of right and wrong. Okay? Take the case of time that we spoke about. In Japan, they may think that it's a value. Being there on time is a value. In the Arab world, it's not. Okay? Being there on time is not a value at all. Something else could be a value. That is that is what decides the collective behavior of the society. Okay? And so on. These are all, anyway, definitions. I'm sure you can study those at the So this is the thing. The thing is, international business finally involves people, and people are affected by culture. People are a product of their culture, and to do international business, you have to deal with people. Not only in terms of your negotiation or your pre-sales efforts or your sales, but understand, even when you do international business and you want to set up an office in another country, in Indonesia or Thailand or something, how do you structure that company? How do you incentivize the people there? If you incentivize people in a certain way in the US because of their culture, the people will do work, they'll get motivated, they'll work for you. But the same kind of structure and the same kind of motivation and incentive and pay structure may not work in another country because that country's cultural value does not give so much importance to these things. Whereas it may give more importance to a collective gathering, a yearly bash for people. That might motivate people much more than giving them an additional 2% increment. Right? So it is not just about interacting with the market. It is also about structuring your own company. To what extent do you delegate? To what extent do you control? Your branch operations in another country. All these things has cultural dimensions to it.
Certain regions like Japan, you have to have a local office because they believe you have to have local presence there, they will believe in you.
You have to be seen to be local.
And the culture is very posh culture. So
very fast.
Very posh. Very like people spend a lot.
Posh. In Japan.
And your office should be seen. Actually, I worked for Wipro. Their office is in one of the next to Yokohama. I think I forgot that city. The tallest building, 57th floor. I think their office, and they have a huge office space, and that is the address. Actually, they put in their this thing. Everybody, actually, the customers, just like that, they go, and because they are there present. And there will be a lot of local people working there. Not we go only on the visits. Local people present there, and even my marketing guy is a local guy, and he speaks Japanese, and he goes to the people and how to interact. So they have a local presence, and it's very expensive. Even the office setup, everything is expensive. Still, they have to do it because the business is coming. So and they have to have a local presence. So they modified a lot of things. When it's expensive, they kept it like that. And even when it's very expensive, they invested so much.
Yeah.
And the same work for a product company, it's a different thing. I mean, they will have a complete local setup. I mean, they have a presence in all the countries. Like if you go to US, they have an office in Yaptown or somewhere. That office is actually completely local, and they run a product.
They run
a product. They develop the product and they sell it throughout the world. And in Bangalore office, they build a product. That product is sold everywhere. And I don't have to travel to the other locations. but they will come and get trained and they will sell it there. That's how they made the model. And they actually, more than 100 countries they have presence. So they don't have to worry, like they don't
It's a Japanese company.
No, it's like a UK based company.
UK company.
UK company, now it is sold
And
to
they're also present in Japan in this expensive area.
all over the
Okay. So
actually they have a different culture. It's not a service based company, it's a product company. They
right.
have a huge product lineup in financial. So the way they do is everywhere they have a local office,
Okay.
local setup. So it's a matrix. Like there will be some VP coming in the top, and we all report to one VP for one function. So that's how the model, and it's a huge collaboration. I don't have to be there in other country to do the job. They will have a local presence, so I don't have to worry about the marketing or any functions.
Okay.
So they will be capable and they will do. If they really need assistance from us, they will invite us. So they will go there. That's how the model. It was completely different, but they set up like that. I mean, some products they bought over. I mean, some products are local presence in US, they purchased. And one product was in Paris, they bought over. And one was in Singapore, Malaysia.
No, that's fine. But
So it was kind of
that is like the point that you are trying to make as far as Japan is concerned with this company. What is the point you are trying to make?
They have a huge local presence. I mean, not like in Wipro when I was there, they had a very less. The frontliners only they will keep, and only marketing people and the 2-3 customer interacting people they keep there. None of them.
Okay.
But others, they come from the local customers.
Right.
So they save a lot of cost, but that company had a huge local presence.
Correct.
I don't have to go there.
Unlike in other countries, they end up having a huge local presence, staffed by local people.
Yes.
Even though from a pure technical point of view, it may not be required.
Yeah, not required.
Right? It could have been done anywhere else actually, but they prefer to do it in Japan. Yeah, that is true. In fact, if you take the story of Wipro, Infosys, TCS and HCL together had a company in the late 90s. All these 4 companies together put equity in a company and to get into the Japanese market, because none of the Indian companies, IT companies, have been successful in the Japanese market. So they had a consortium, started a new company in Japan, put a lot of money in it, put a lot of investment, hired a lot of local people, then tried to do offshoring. They tried for almost 5 to 8 years. I think it was set up in the early 90s, early to mid 90s, 93, 94. They tried up to 2000, 2002, 2004 almost, but they didn't succeed. They could never get in. Again, predominantly because of the cultural difference. You know why? When we do work, when IT companies do work with US companies, what do the US companies do? They give a set of specifications, right? They give requirements, which you convert into your design specifications, then you do the programming, all that stuff. Do you know how many pages of, so now you have your ISO 9000 CMM level 5, it says, you have to do these requirements, documentation, quality, all that stuff. Then you go to Japan and you go to the customer and ask for the requirements document. That fellow will give you 2 or 5 pages, maximum 5 pages of Japanese requirements document.
In Japanese, you have to translate.
Yeah, first you have to translate. After translating, you should know what it actually means in terms of requirements, because when you go to a US or a UK or a German company, you go to a German company, as for the requirements of, let us say, exactly the same system that the Japanese fellow is giving, the same system you want to requirements from the German fellow, he will give you 350 pages of requirements, completely detailed requirements. Okay, but Japan will give you 5 pages. Does it affect business?
Yes.
It does. You know why he gives only 5 pages? No. The Japanese, for the last 400, 500 years, whatever number of years you take, have been a very homogeneous group. Why? Because there have been no attacks. There has been no mix of races like it has happened in the rest of the world. If you take Europe, US, Africa, India, anywhere, any of these countries, there has been a lot of conquests from outside, whether it's Persian or others. So there has been a mix. So all our brains are a result of heterogeneous cultures over a long period of time. The Japanese are not. because the North Sea, the sea around the north of this thing is so high in terms of tidal waves that it's very difficult to approach Japan by sea. So until the Hiroshima-Nagasaki problem in 1945, Japan has not been conquered in any way, not just political conquered, but in any way. So they are homogeneous culture. So their brains over a period of thousands of years, it all works the same. So when they give a 5-page requirement document to a Japanese vendor, he knows exactly what it means. He knows the 300 pages that it gets translated into in his mind. Okay, so he need not worry. And they are always used to giving that to their own Japanese vendors. And the way it works, I'm sure you would be aware, in Japan, is there are these few big companies. There will be one Fujitsu, one Matsushita, one Honda, all this. And then there are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers of vendors. This fellow supplies to this fellow, supplies to next fellow, next fellow, next fellow. For it supplies to Honda. Okay, that whole Japan culture is like that. Okay. So when that fellow gives a 5-page requirement document, his vendor knows what it means. When he gets it programmed by the next vendor, he knows what it means. His next fellow who maintains it knows what it means. Indians, we don't know what it means, and when we have to estimate, we don't know how to estimate for those requirements. And if I don't estimate properly and show money for my company, I will lose my job. So I want to be very careful. So what do? I go back to the Japanese client, tell him, boss, this is not enough, I want detailed requirements. Okay, first there are translation problems. Let's assume translation problems will take away for the moment. I want to convert that 5-page document into a 300-page document, which will take a lot of time. Assuming I do it, I make the 300-page document. Then what happens? I want him to sign off. That fellow will sign off. Yeah? He doesn't know, it's all in English, and you are giving it in English. So that fellow now has to get it translated into Japanese. Then let us say he signs off. In fact, in Japan, there is no culture of sign off. But he will say, no, my auditor, CMM level 5, he will give me a non-compliance, therefore you please sign off. So he will sign off because of your pressure, because you already lost a lot of time. And then when you develop, he will say, no, this is not correct. This number, this A which appears in the 6th column, 7th row, should actually appear in 8th column, 6th row. So very small change he will ask for, and it's a big bug, major bug. So now you will go and you will ask for, say that this is a change request. Please give me. The Japanese culture is such that they work with the same set of vendors for a very, very long time. So he will say, what is this change request? You just do it. I am not going to pay you any extra money for doing it. Because you are going to be my vendor for another 50 years, 100 years. You make up your money somewhere else. I can't pay you for this. Will we agree? Yeah. We don't agree. As this thing will say, no, if you don't pay for the change request, how will I put more effort? How will I put an extra programmer? I will say, I cannot. So because of this kind of thing, the Indian software industry has never been successful in Japan. You can imagine, every day this will be a problem.
It's a business loss.
It's a business loss.
That work where it went, 2 people.
No, they disbanded that consortium. After 10 years, they said, sorry, this is a market we cannot crack. And even in the last few years, only now, because TCS is trying now. Okay, TCS was also part of the consortium. TCS is now trying on its own, actually. So, anyway, the big advantage, if you want to look at Japan as a market, is the average age of the Japanese is close to some 50 or 52. So, in the next 30 or 40 years' time, they will not have people who are as young as people in our country to do work. So, they will have no choice. Most people will be old. And their average age is some 95 or 100 or something. They are all very, very long. Okay, so when that is happening, they know that the money they have to spend on the old people is much, much more in the next 40 to 50 years, and they are not going to produce that money because there is no young workforce which is getting ready for that in the next 20, 30 years. So they have no choice but to cut costs because they have to pay this huge aging population for their health and pension and all that. So they say that Japan is the best market to get into if you can break this business practice and cultural barrier kind of thing. If you can break it, then it is the best market to go in for, because they have no choice but to do a lot of outsourcing, If outsourcing doesn't work, if you want to just go learn Japanese, live in Japan, if you can like the Japanese way of life, then opportunities are abundant. In the next 34 years.
They are obsessed with that Western culture. And
They are
nowadays
obsessed. They want to learn golf and
they don't
baseball.
Actually, they don't marry.
Yeah.
Marrying, the divorce is costing like hell. So they don't marry, only live in, and they don't want to have kids. That's the type of culture now they are having. And that's one of the reasons.
Right.
When they have many old people,
Yep.
there is no new generation.
Yeah.
That's advantage for us. But,
There used to be a time when they had lots of kids and all that, but now all that has changed after the Second World War. Things have changed.
because even I had some Japanese friends, they used to tell their girls are materialistic.
Now, like our parents or grandparents say that these days the kids have become very materialistic. Same thing with Japan, and it's true. So because of this baseball and a lot of these other cultures now, they are also changing, just like our society is changing.
Yeah, Bangalore also now.
Very much. So whenever we talk about culture and all these business practices and all that, it is typically what we think, and what we think as typical, and we think it is very general, but there are always exceptions. I am sure there will be a Japanese company which is, in fact, I think I have, let me just quickly, I will, last time I forgot to, oh no, it's my other, there is a news item as recently as last year or before last year, where somebody has gone to, some woman in Japan has gone to court saying that this bias against women is high, and some court case, I'll see if it is something. Anyway, so business involves people. I think we are now convinced that yes, culture has impact on business. Cultural diversity, ethnocentrism, and self-reference criteria that we use. Like we said, we always look at things from our own perspective. Okay, that is self-reference criterion. Ethnocentrism is thinking that our culture is somehow superior. So how it affects international business is when you introduce a product to another country, you think that because your culture is superior, somehow the product that you have developed is superior, and that is the product that is to be sold in the other country. Therefore, it affects the way you promote the product, the way you price the product, everything gets affected. For I think there was I think GE, if I'm not mistaken, when they introduced rice cookers in Japan, okay, their advertisement said that rice can now be cooked in 10 minutes. So the Japanese housewife, it becomes so simple for you. So that was the advertisement, and it failed miserably. Why? Because in Japanese culture, especially for the Japanese women, preparing rice is an important activity of the day. Okay, so you are now taking away that, saying that rice is so easy to prepare. Because in Japan there are so many kinds of rice, it has to be done because they eat using chopsticks, it has to be done in a certain way, all those things are there. So they did not like the fact that here you are coming and saying rice can be made in 10 minutes or something. So how can you make rice in 10 minutes? There is an art to making rice. So that product failed. Actually they had to change their whole advertising campaign because of that. So cultural collision, divergent cultures coming in contact, adjusting to foreign behavior, all these things affect your whole life cycle of your product and the whole value chain of your product actually. Then changing your business practices to suit the culture of another country. Another big difference, we have been talking too much about China. Let's talk about UK a little bit. UK have this habit for understatement, as we call it. I don't know whether you understand what that means. I'll give you an example. Either they do understatement or they exaggerate and do an overstatement. They never speak the normal statement, so to speak. So if you have to cross the Atlantic to get to the US, we say, you have to cross the Atlantic Ocean to get to the US. Most of the Britishers will say, oh, there is this small pond that we have to cross to get over to the US, a small pond kind of. So that's their understanding. Or they will say, they'll have to, suppose you have to just go to one next block, for a coffee or something. I cannot walk hundreds of miles to get to the coffee shop. It will just next block actually. There's either an understatement or a kind of overstatement. The impact is very, I have a very funny incident that happened when I was the TCS RM in Birmingham. We used to have programmers come in, and we had some of these kids, some fellow who came, I remember he was some Telugu guy. So he came, first day he comes to office, he thinks he is being very smart, so he comes with a very very loud color shirt. If you see British, they don't use loud colors at all. Again, because of the weather and so many other factors. They use very light colors, very subdued colors. Okay, understatement of colors, essentially. So this fellow comes with a very some red or yellow, one of those color shirts, and then goes and meets that British lady, that manager. And then I met that lady the next day for some meeting. So she said, wait, before meeting her, I met this guy to find out how his first day was. So he said, hey, my manager was very happy with me. So she said, you are looking very colorful. So this fellow thought, very colorful means it's a compliment. That lady is actually saying, you are wearing a horrible shirt, by saying that it's very colorful. So that's the way they express their opinion. So you should be sensitive to this. So this fellow thought next day he can go with a darker shirt. I had to call this guy and sensitize him, saying that when she says that you are wearing a colorful shirt, this is what she actually means. So this sometimes we interpret as backstabbing. Maybe that fellow might have thought, hey, this lady appreciated me, saying there's a colorful shirt, and my manager says that it actually means like this, so she's backstabbing me. Because that is the ethnocentric or the perception in which we come, and that can lead to problems in business. Just another example. So you have to change your business practices sometimes to suit the culture of another country. Especially contracts. Contracts are one of the highest impacted business entities in international business because of culture. When you do a UK contract, the kind of clauses, the kind it is interpreted, the jurisdiction that it gives is all very, very different compared to what you do with the Japanese, for example. The Japanese, because the contracts are in actually English, the Japanese, and they are not so much bothered. So they have a 4-page or 5-page contract, and they just sign the contract and just throw it away somewhere. They don't even bother about it. Whereas you sign a contract with the British or the US guys, first thing, we know the whole US, the richest guys are the lawyers, because they are the people who keep suing other people based on the contracts. So it's very different. So the impact on business on the contract side because of culture is extremely high. So whenever you do a project, you should be very careful with the contracts for different countries. What it means, what is the jurisdiction. Sometimes there is a lot of liability clauses around very high. In fact, IPR, will discuss a case about IPR in which I had a certain role. Okay, so we'll come back. So what we say is culture is like an iceberg. So what you see, the people, are the visible behaviors. So what you see at the top are the visible behaviors. So the visible behaviors are like the tip of the iceberg. There are invisible sources, values, beliefs, assumptions that are underlying those behaviors. And if you fail to recognize these when you deal in a business dealing with other people, you might be led astray or you might go wrong in your business dealing. So you have to be very careful there. Typically, as I said, we take a nation as a point of reference for culture, and by the human nature, we say we are like this, they are like that. So right there, we are already drawing a boundary between us and them, right? and that is part of most of the culture. But let us not forget that not everyone in a country share the same culture. I am sure you will find American culture among the Japanese people and the Japanese culture among the Indian people. There are always groups who do that. But there is usually a national identity that comes with it because of the historical evolution of boundaries, right? But yeah, these cultural values of course are set very early in life, and changes occur only either by choice. I choose, as you said, that fellow who migrated to the US, he decided that US culture is much better for him, and I'm sure he would be, for all practical purposes,
Because
a person with the US culture.
if he comes back here, I don't think no one will give a job because he is already one hand is gone, fully out. The other hand also it's hanging.
Yeah.
So
But from his behavior, now I'm sure he was born as with the Indian culture behavior. But now if he comes back, I mean wherever he is, right, he will have the US culture in him.
Yeah.
So either by choice or by imposition, you can change.
No person will change. He will get now he will have a citizenship. I don't think I chatted him on Facebook. He always tells, when are you coming here? I told, no bullshit, I'm not coming back.
Okay. So our cultures change only either by choice or imposition or contact with other cultures, which is now happening with globalization. And we are getting a sample of cultures all over the world. Okay. We will not go through too much of this. I think a lot of this information is available in the textbook. So please go through the textbook.
Pricing is one thing.
Pricing.
Matters.
Right.
Anything,
Very, yeah. It does.
Service or product. When
No?
you sell any service or product, when you sell to
Especially
different
service.
Now the product also, because I had an experience. It's a product company, banking product. So when we sell to this Africa region is our main region, Middle East. MEA is the main region. We sell a lot of setup there. So my charge will be 3 million to 6 million plus the charges for implementation. So around it will be 8 million or something. So that's the normal pricing I make, and we will be having a good margin. So that is the same price I give to UK and US, all the regions, and South America, they accept it. So the same thing, you can go back to Philippines, this side. Philippines, I have to give a compromise. I mean,
You have to give a
compromise. I mean, they were not ready to buy the product. I mean, if the whole thing goes beyond 1 million, because they are small banks, and they cannot spend that much because their business is not that much. I don't know the reason, but I never visited there. And the sales guy spoke to me.
Malaysia.
Philippines. I don't know the culture, but I never visited there. The marketing guy, one day he called me and he said, can you bring down the price? I said, I cannot bring down the price, you talk to the CEO. And he had a discussion with the CEO. Finally, he had a strategy. 40 installations I will bring it to the table in a year. 40 installations, 40 setups in a bank. I will convert all of them into our product. But you have to give me the price, 500, offer million or something. That's the price they are ready to pay, but all banks will be converted to your product. So I will make it sure, and he got the approval. CEO said, okay, go ahead. And he came back to me and he said, he showed it, he sent forward the mail, and he said, okay, can you, because I will give them a price. So I said, okay, maybe you got the approval, I will do that. Then I asked him, what are the strategy you have? Then he said, okay, initial ILF is gone. Initial license fees will not cost. That comes around 1 million, just gone. Take it off from the table. And RLF will charge, the recurring. So that will charge, but the initial ILF is gone, so 1 million brought down. So your 3.5 million, 1 million is back. Now the rest of the 2.5 million, I cannot reduce anything. You tell me what should I do. Then he said he spoke to all the people and we'll do more offshoring. Some techniques we had. And finally, $500 million, I came down all the estimates to $500,000, and gave the price, and he is happy, so happy, and he started sending the proposal to all the people, 40 banks. And that was the strategy. And finally, CEO approved this whole thing because he will get 40 banks will get converted, and he will have better presence in that area. He can use that, take advantage of that reference to other countries. And anyway, the banks buy the product, they will be tied to them. Recurring is there. Every year they have 20% income. So they can live on that. So initial cost we are giving up. So that's a strategy they took over. And
but these are all
pricing, it is too much. I mean, when I looked at, it's a too much.
not an unknown strategy. Like what they call the loss leader in marketing terms. So the leader will not make you money. The leader is always a loss. But what follows, the followers of the leader will help you make money. So they're always happy with a loss leader. But these are all risky strategies. I mean, it depends on how desperate you are, how deep pockets you have. Because remember one thing. What looks like, suppose this is your price. Okay, your price is 1 million. All right. You are expecting, let us say, $200,000 profit, and your cost is 800,000. Right? By giving 10% discount, let us say, even if you give just 10% discount, 10% discount on a million is 100K. Okay? For you, it looks like a 10% discount. But if I were the CEO, for me, the cost is still 800K. So my 100K is going away from my 200K. So my profits are dropped by 50%, not 10%. 10% is the discount I am giving on sales, right? But what I am actually losing is 50% of my profits. So if I lose 50% of my profits, what is the impact on my earnings per share? It can be huge. You understand the impact, right? So this is where the managers, sometimes even the sales guys, forget the impact, the financial impact of giving a discount. They will say, if you give 50% off, I will give you 40 customers, and hopefully with only 10% additional effort, you are getting a lot more money. But if you work out the overall finances over a period of time, taking the interest cost, the cost of money, sometimes even giving a 10% discount, if you look at the complete financial impact, that is why they always say chartered accountants never make good salespeople. Never, because once you start calculating all this stuff and you calculate the impact on your balance sheet, earnings per share and all that, you will decide, boss, no point in selling. Okay, that's why I always say the sales guys have to be optimists always in character. The delivery guys have to be always pessimists. Only then the team will work. Because if the sales guy becomes pessimist, he will never sell. And if the delivery guy becomes optimistic, he will never keep his promises. He will always deliver bad quality. He should always be worried that, oh, I don't think it's working. Oh, I don't think it worked well. I don't think the quality is good. So if the delivery guy is always thinking that way, then he will keep improving the product. And if the sales guy is optimistic, then he can sell. That's why it's important when you even choose people for your structure, for sales and delivery. I would say use this as one of the criteria to put whether that fellow should go into sales or delivery. Guys who go into sales should be people who can work with other people, relationship based, people based kind of person. Whereas if you are a person who is happy being an individual, sitting at a table, working away, hacking away code, whatever, then be in delivery.
So the recent organization, the name given for chief sales is relation service.
Chief, yeah.
I saw it. Exactly.
It's innovation.
To inculcate certain traits.
Like, more than that, sometimes they want to think, they want to make you think that way, that you are related, because relationship and sales are very, very different things. Different in the sense that once you start approaching something as a relationship, that's why in Airtel and all that, they call it a relationship center, not a sales center.
Partner,
Because sales is a transaction. Sales is a transaction. Relationship is much more
working
long-term.
partnership, something like in the product implementation, like.
In fact, one of the things that many telecom companies now are using data analytics is for finding out they are trying to calculate what they call LVC, lifetime value of customer. So if this customer, how long has he been with us? What is his lifetime value so far? If he continues with us for another 10 years, how much more money he is going to make from him? Because winning one customer like this is 50 times more difficult than gaining a customer who can give you the same value. So it's more important to retain. So that's why if you want to retain, then you should have a relationship. So now today technology is available to have that relationship, because you can get data from various different sources. Whether you are a Airtel digital subscriber, Airtel broadband, Airtel mobile, you can put all of that data together and make sure that the moment you call, if you are given a king's treatment, a queen's treatment, saying, sir, this is what you are and this is what we would like to do for you, we will give Mahatri.
Banks do that always. And nowadays the telephone companies also they do that. Actually,
Yes.
I had the experience because my signal I don't get enough. The Airtel, I had Airtel, then I switched to Vodafone. Vodafone I don't get the signal, so I have to climb up one stair. So I want to change it to Airtel now. And I went and I filled the application, gave the documentation. I want to retain the same number. The Vodafone they rejected. Because for them, the 245 rupees minimum balance for 1,000 rupees or 1,500, I will be paying before time every month. It will be taken from my account automatically. So monthly minimum they will get to guarantee 200 rupees because that's a plan. 200 they will get 245 including tax. So they would have calculated. I am with them for the last 4 or 5 years. So just imagine they immediately rejected. No, I don't want to lose the customer, and they gave some reasons. And I called them up, I asked I was not failing to pay, and there were 2 days bill pending. They said you didn't pay, so I cannot allow you to switch it to Airtel. And I just bashed them what? See, the country is allowing whether you are doing blocking. Then they said, no sir, 2 days, our rule says 2 days balance you have to pay. Then I said, okay, let me pay for the whole month. You take it in advance, 200 rupees or whatever, take it in advance for another 2 months and get me out of this network. Then they came back and managers called me from then sir, we will fix the network, sir. So the data collection is very important. Even the individual they are looking at this profitable.
It's all because of technology.
ARPU, they calculate. You know what ARPU is? He will know. He worked in Reliance
Average revenue per
right?
users.
Average revenue per user, ARPU. That's what I mean. That is one of the main metrics on how the company is performing. Whether the ARPU is increasing continuously, because number of connections,
Only
number of
thing
SIM
we
cards,
talk
number of customers has no meaning.
In
ARPU
telecom
has to
only two
increase.
things, ARPU and churn.
ARPU and churn. Churn is relationship, ARPU is your revenue. Two main. Okay. So, this is just an example. So, this is very common with us, right? To say, this means good because we have learnt it from UK. But in Russia, it means zero. In Brazil, it's actually a very insulting thing. Okay? To show that finger like that. In Japan, this means money. So, you have to be very careful when you deal with people in other countries. You should know how this can make or break sometimes relationships. Okay, this is a very famous example quoted in most textbooks. This is a very famous company. Weber is a very famous US company. It is like our Amul. You know what you I mean? Once upon a time, we used to get these Amul products for kids. Okay, so they have this pastiche. They have number of products for kids. Yeah, like Cerelac. Okay, from 0 to 2 years, 3 years. So this is very famous. You just put Gerber, it will always come up with this. So obviously they are trying to say that it is child's food, and they introduced this in Africa. In Africa, because of literacy, what they do is, because people don't know how to read, they put the content of the product as a picture on the can. Okay. this.
They thought selling kids.
So you're almost saying that the meat of the child is in the can, right? They use the same packaging as the US with the smiling baby on the label. Later they learned that in Africa, companies routinely put pictures on the labels of what's inside, since many people can't read. So some simple things like this, sometimes, can really boomerang. This is one more GM's fiasco, but I checked the web later. Actually, it is just a legend. They say that this actually did not